Hi, my name is Berwout of Robles, and welcome to my talk about Tetris-shaped developers. The way we work has evolved quite a bit over the last 20 years, but our metaphors and the expectations that come with them, they've stayed behind a little bit. For instance, take a look at our job titles. Where we used to be called programmers, we're now known as more of these consultancy types. For instance, if you think about the original term, the programmers we used to be, and if you search for that term on the internet, you will find an image quite like this. A person sitting in the dark, looking at their screen, lit up by their screen, and you might imagine throwing a bag of potato chips over the wall and receiving code out the other end, where you stay as far away from this person as you can. Slowly, we've transitioned into this more of a software engineer or software developer role, where now we're seen as these collaborating types which work together to solve problems. And maybe we're often pictured in front of a whiteboard, for instance. And then slowly I'm seeing this shift towards IT consultancy, right? It's the guy you call when you have problems, basically. And he comes in to fix it with a nice suit and a nice smile. But he costs more, right? He's a bit more expensive. And apart from that, our expectations have also changed a little bit, where we used to be okay with the person being T-shaped, which meant that he had this one specialization and he was able to communicate with other specializations a little bit up to a certain degree. And you might see it pictured like this, right? The T-shaped agile team, where you have these multiple roles and each of them have a broad general base of the other domains, but they have their own specialization and we can communicate with each other. But today, we've started adding those specializations together. You can see it in the word DevOps, where the dev and the ops are both central and they're both a specialization. And actually, we keep on adding more and more lines where we're also now doing security or actually even business management. And the line of the specialist doesn't seem to decrease. We only add more and more lines, more and more specializations. And it seems to be going towards this trend where you end up like this software developer unicorn that vanquishes evil with every stroke on the keyboard and can solve all your magical software problems. But this is a bit unrealistic. Not every software developer can be a specialist at everything. This is why I quite like the term Tetris-shaped developer. It basically means that we each have our own shape and own specializations, and some of them are not as deep as the others. And if you have a project that covers a wide range of domains, like this one, for instance, then it's going to take a while to build up that knowledge. And if you have a new member in the team, it might take longer for them to get adjusted to your project because they have to learn all these new domains. But also, if you do manage to line up the bricks across all these domains, it ends up being much more valuable. You get this sort of general insight that you wouldn't have had if you didn't see the other parts of the domains. You get a score multiplier. And also, you get to go faster. We're trying to maximize velocity in most cases. We're trying to get the most out of every dollar we spend on development. What we're doing essentially is we're increasing the difficulty over time. But be careful, because if you increase the difficulty too much, you might get overwhelmed. And you've seen this happen where teams just get bogged down under features, and their technical solution takes a back part and they just get overwhelmed. And in the end, what it comes down to could be missing fundamentals, where in your team, you might be missing a few fundamental bricks at the bottom, and it can be very hard to solve that problem when all you get is more and more features. What I'm curious about is what would you look like? For instance, I tried to draw myself, and I have quite a few specializations, but they're not all as developed as the rest. And maybe more importantly, what does your project look like? And what does your team look like? How broad is your domain? And do you actually cover all of the specializations that your project requires? And maybe even do you cover them twice because you need some sort of redundancy? What if someone leaves or someone gets sick? All right, I've tried to give you an argument on why I like the term Tetris-shaped developers, but now it's time for me to leave. Please rate the talk in the official JFall app and have a wonderful day.
This is Jeopardy! Introducing today's contestants, the fabulous audience of JFOL. This special edition of America's favorite quiz show will feature questions on various Java Enhancement Proposals, or JEPs, hence the different name. So let's play a game with Jeopardy together, and for those of you who don't know the premise of the game, the following clip from the incredible movie Groundhog Day explains it very nicely.
Lakes and Rivers 400.
Seneca is the largest of these lakes in west central New York.
What are the Finger Lakes?
Jim.
What are the Finger Lakes?
Correct.
Lakes and Rivers for 600.
This South American lake drains into the smaller lake
What is
in
Titicaca?
Bolivia. Jim.
What is Titicaca?
Correct.
Lakes and Rivers for 1,000.
Milky colored from glacial clay when entering Lake Geneva, this river is clear blue upon exiting. Jim?
What is the Rhone?
The Rhone, good for $1,000.
You just do what Bill Murray did. You'll be fine.
Inventors.
Now to summarize, each correct answer gets you a predefined reward. Once every game, the reward can be bigger though, because you get to wager part of your score. This is the random daily double event, and when it happens, we will do a quick online vote to decide the wager amount. Sounds simple, right? So let's introduce today's categories: prolific past and future features. Both relate to Java, of course. Now here's our game board, so get ready to type your answers now, because we'll start with the first question. It's prolific past for 100 points. An interactive tool to evaluate declarations, statements, and expressions. Now what could that be? Type your answers now, and if all answers are wrong, sadly, I will win the points. So stay focused, everybody. The correct answer is, what is JShell? Or what is the read, evaluate, print loop? Or what is JAP2 to do? Great feature to use in demos, this one. Next question, prolific past for 200 points. A language construct that implements a method defined by a functional interface. And as before, I will post the current score in the chat so you can see how you're doing. And the correct answer is, what are lambda expressions? Or what is JAP126, if your name happens to be Sheldon Cooper? This is a great feature that we've all been using since Java 8. Next up, prolific past 400. This extension of the switch statement delivers both readability and brevity. 10 seconds left, go! By the way, don't blame me for that. I didn't come up with this ridiculous 15 seconds per slide ID. Okay, so the correct answer is, what are switch expressions? Or any of these JEPs for that matter. This feature has been finalized in Java 14 and can now be used in production. So let's dive into the future now. Future features for 100 points. An extension of the case label that takes type test patterns. I'm really excited about this feature. It is a great one. And the correct answer is, what is pattern matching for switch? It will enable us to use switch for class types. Still unknown when it will be available though. Next up, future features for 200 points. An abstract data type with performance similar to primitive types. Still no daily double, by the way. And the correct answer is, what are inline classes, or what are value types? Part of Project Valhalla, these were renamed recently to inline classes. Final question, future features 400 points. Daily double, chance to double your score. Now, this link is also in the chat right now, so click it fast to indicate what you want to wager. You've got about 10 seconds left to participate. Again, don't blame me for this preposterous little time limit. Okay, bets have been placed, here we go. This concurrency innovation may render thread pools obsolete. And the correct answer is, what are virtual threads? The new name of fibers. And Project Loom will certainly change the way we do concurrency in Java. Now, I've been keeping score in the chat, as you have seen, and it looks like we have a winner. So, congratulations. Now, I've had a great time. I hope you did too. And if you saw something cool that you liked, go on and check out the corresponding JEPs. Thanks for playing Jeopardy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Julia.
Today we're going to talk about The Art of Being Right, a book from Arthur Schopenhauer, and how it applies to Twitter. And I hope you're ready for it because this is a very, very fast format. So Arthur Schopenhauer is a German philosopher. He lived in the 19th century, and he wrote about the word and its representation through the eyes of the subject. And it sounds a bit fuzzy, but you'll recognize it better if I say that he's one of the inspirations behind the Matrix. In his book, The Art of Being Right, Schopenhauer defines the difference between the facts, logic, and debate, dialectic. And he says that if you have the right debate methods, then you'll end up better than the one with the right facts. And he lists a whole lot of different ways to actually come off better. For example, making someone angry, interrupting him, generalizing his statements. And if you've seen the debate from last week, you're very used to that. Now, what is interesting on Twitter is that we're not looking at a debate between two people anymore. All those people on screen right now, they have millions of followers. And every time they write something, they have a response in the hundreds, in the thousands. We're not talking about a debate anymore. Now, before we go further, I just want to be very clear. This talk is not about a certain technology, name, or group. Don't go digging on Twitter. This is not the point, even though everything is open. The first thing I want to mention is the idea of the block button. This is, of course, very useful on Twitter to be able to block obnoxious people. But there is also a vicious effect to that, which is to block anyone that you disagree with or that does not follow your point of view. And the reason is you actually might end up in an echo chamber where everything around you is actually having the same point of view as you are. And everything, you end up in a filter bubble where everything around you is the same as you. So if we come back to Schopenhauer, let's find some fun examples on Twitter of arguments that can be used from his book. So the first one is appeal to authority. And the second one is using a faulty proof to refute a position. If you're used to climate change threads, you'll see these graphics popped out a lot. This is a graphic showing that CO2 emissions are actually going down over time. Well, this is very useful if you're looking at the age of the Earth, except it doesn't apply to humans. Now, the second idea is this Polymer project showing that they are finally available on all platforms, which is great for them. And someone coming and saying, you forgot about server-side rendering, you're actually useless. That's very interesting. Now, what that shows is being right on Twitter, you cannot really, there's always going to be someone to disagree with. And the facts, they don't really matter because the logic is actually totally replaced by dialectic, the fine words, as we would say in French. And this is something that social media platforms actually like because they are skewed. They want your attention, those platforms. And outrage is what's selling. They want your engagement. The more engaged you are, the happier they are. And this is something that certain people have really picked off. You will see tweets sometimes actually calling for engagement by showing, harmful behaviors like, you're a junior if you use a mouth, or why does your commit log doesn't look like that? And people are actually saying this is for engagement. This is another example of hundreds of people showing the same content again and again and again. This is called disinformation on the platform. Now, something you might not be aware of is Twitter is actually biased by design as well. Only 34% of Twitter users are female. And studies have shown that Twitter creates a much stronger emotional connection than the social media average. This is something that you should keep in mind when you're actually on the platform. So why am I on Twitter? Well, I actually love seeing opinions that I would have never met otherwise. And I really like that the social media, this very social network is actually pretty genuine, not like Instagram or LinkedIn, for example. And as we round off, I just want to remember to show you that quote. Someone made something about Git last week saying Git was really a disaster. And someone said, don't forget, this is just an opinion. Yes, why would you really matter? What does it matter? This is an opinion from someone. And the last words from Schopenhauer as we go to the conclusion is, this dialectic, these stratagems, why do you know them? You should know them so that you can fend them off, so that you can avoid them in the future and recognize them. So as a conclusion, try to not feed the troll. Always verify what you read. Is that the right context for that? And focus on the value that a platform brings you. I hope to see you there soon. Bye.
Well, hello there. My name is Michel Schudel. I'm a software engineer from a company called Craftsman. And today I wanted to show you a library called ArchUnit, which is a handy library to unit test your architectural software constraints. So what I've done here, I've opened IntelliJ and I've created a small application with 3 packages: API, which contains your REST controllers, clients, which contains your outgoing connections, and core, which is the business logic part of your application. So it's the inner layer. So what you want normally to have is that you can access stuff in core from API and clients, but not the other way around, right? Because core, you don't want to have any dependencies on outer layers in your business logic. So ArchUnit allows you to actually formally test that. So I've created a test called package test here, which is a normal unit test class. It has a analyze classes annotation on top, which specifies the base package I'm going to scan. And then it has a JUnit rule called an arch test, which I define here. You can see it has a fluent API. So it says here, no classes that reside in any package core. So this is a wildcard. So any package name containing core will be valid. Should depend on classes that reside in any package API client. So if I run this, you will see that my unit test just successfully works. So no problems. You see some analyze stuff here that you can use to see what ArchUnit is actually doing. So now if I were to introduce an error, for example, in my service, I would say, let's introduce a controller here, which basically points to the outside, right? So that would be totally wrong. So if I run the package test again, now we will see that it will fill with hopefully a nice error message at the bottom, which basically says here, specifies what went wrong and what service what Java class it went wrong in. So this allows you to see what actually went wrong. So I remove this controller for now. So if you have any constraint that you cannot express through the Fluent API, which I just showed you, you can also write a custom rule. So for example, you can say, I want to have a check that will check that no fields have the deprecated annotation anymore. So you can implement this interface. It's called Arch condition. And then basically you can say, okay, I write a check method that gets a Java class, which is basically like a reflection-like model of your Java class, and a condition events object, which you can use to add any violations if you find them. So I can say here, if Java class get all fields, has a match where a field is annotated with deprecated, so this is a normal lambda, you can add a error message to this condition events class. And so it's a little bit like a programmatic validation, right? Now, in order to use this, you have to write again, a ArchUnit test, and you can write, you can inject basically your interface in the Fluent API. So that's a way you can use custom rules. Now, if I were to run this, everything goes okay, right? Because I haven't made a failure yet. So you see it's green here at the bottom. So now let's introduce an error. So for example, I would put the deprecated function annotation here, like this, and I run the test again, you will see that it will actually fail, right? So that's a way you can implement custom rules in your own application. Now, last thing I wanted to show you is, can you also share tests, for example, between teams? Well, yeah, you can. You can write a separate artifact. It's called shared architecture tests here, which just contains ArchUnit architecture tests, no problem. So these are like layer rules. I'm not going to go through them all. And the way you use that is you just include them in your POM. So you can specify them as a dependency here. And then you can just run them from a test that imports those tests. So I've written a shared test class here. And basically it says, you can say here arch rules in, where you can reference to this imported test. So that's the way you can run shared tests. So if you run this, you will see that it will actually run these imported tests. So that's very short what I wanted to show you about ArchUnit. So this is a very nice library that allows you to run tests as unit tests. It has a Fluent API, it is customizable, and you can also share tests between teams. So that's what I wanted to show you for this Ignite. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of JFall.
Hey JFall, welcome. My name is Roy Brown.
I work as a developer and architect for a very cool company called JEPardy. You can find me on Twitter. Feel free to ask questions. Sit back and relax for now. I'm going to give you a Justify Buying Lego 101 in a couple of minutes. Sadly, I'm not paid by Lego, and I don't advise you to take any of this talk as an advice to buy Lego. And please don't blame me if you ordered too much Lego after this talk. There's still time to leave. I hear some of you thinking, why do you need to justify buying Lego? True, you don't have to justify anyone, including yourself, for buying Lego, but at some point, when you spend a decent amount of money, you come to a point where you think, yesterday I didn't want to replace that 40 euro broken chair, but now I'm spending 1,000 plus euros on Lego in one day. I've been through that process. Let me help you a bit. The first one is money. It makes the world go round. Also the Lego world, obvious. Lego costs quite some money. It's quite expensive, but it holds its value. Actually, it's quite a good investment. If you look at these sets, some older and some new, you can see that they have a good annual growth. For example, the boxed yellow castle set, bottom right, it's now worth more than 7,000 euros when it's in a good condition. If you compare these sets with the index markets around the world, you see that they're doing quite well. Actually, most of the sets are beating the index markets all over the world. That's also probably why more and more small investments are done in Lego. So people buy for 10,000 euros a year Lego. I'm not saying that's a good thing for the toy brand, but money-wise, it's not a bad idea to buy Lego. A Lego collection is also very satisfying for your OCD. The more Lego you have, the more it can satisfy your OCD. Nicely organize all your 1x1 bricks, 2x2 bricks and the heads of your minifigures, and your OCD will be happy. And when it comes to kids, it's so much easier. Here are my kids helping with the Millennium Falcon, and for kids it's really encourages their creativity, improves fine motor skills, encourages sharing social skills, it develops problem solving and mathematical thinking, and develops lateral thinking and planning, and learns following instructions. And who wants to be that parent to stop them from doing all that by having too small Lego collections where they couldn't find all the bricks they need? Next one is work related. That justifies kind of everything. It can do something with code. You can program it and you can teach programming with it. What else do I need to say? You can also practice chemistry, just like you did in high school. You learn that hydrogen peroxide is a great way of whitening bricks, and with a concentration of 12%, some sun and some patience, you can make this work. And all your bricks will be nice again. I know acrylonitrile butadiene styrene or ABS plastic is oil-based, and according to Lego, building eco-friendly Lego is the biggest challenge ahead. But they're making big stacks now, and some of the bricks are already eco-friendly. On the other side, nobody throws away Lego, so it's kept for generations. We, I still have Lego that's 40 years old and just works fine. It's not like this cheap toy that barely holds one generation. It goes multiple generations. And Lego is also backwards compatible. And we as developers know that it's quite hard to make something backwards compatible. Lego that's bought in the 60s can still be used together with recent Lego. So Lego you buy now will also work with Lego in the future. You can buy and build a cluster of Raspberry Pis and start a side project that never finish, or you can buy a carbon fiber wheel for your bicycle, or buy a quarter of a MacBook Pro that doesn't even have a delete key, or you can spend 800 euros on this nice Millennium Falcon masterpiece with almost 9,000 bricks and have a lot of fun building it and look at it. You choose. There might be some reasons not to buy Lego. Thanks for watching this 5-minute 101. I would advise you to play around with it and get some experience. If you have any questions after this 101 or doing experience with it, you know where to find me. Thanks for watching. Have a nice JFO and hope to see you soon.
Hi, my name is Simon. This is a presentation on self-driving cars. For the past year I've been working on this car. This is a self-driving, fully autonomous race car, and I'm just gonna tell you all about it. So I was part of a team, a collaborative team between people from Delft and MIT, all students. And together we participated in the Formula Student Challenges. This is an international competition where teams from all over the world build electric or combustion race cars to see who's the fastest. And we made this driverless race car, right? And the objective is as follows. Make a car, put it on a track, and the car should follow the track, and the track is set out with blue and yellow cones. And the fastest wins. So, how did we do this? Well, we were lucky enough to not have to build a car from scratch. The team before us from Delft built an amazing electric race car that's faster than a Formula 1 in the first 100 meters, and we just had to adapt it to drive all by itself. So we added a bunch of electronics, sensors, motors for the steering, actuators for the brake and power, and sensors. And software, but also sensors. So, first sensors. Cameras. Cameras are there to detect the cones, and we got 4 of them. 2 of them looking to the left and 2 of them looking to the right. And as you know, if you've got 2 cameras, you can see 3D. And this is really cool because now we have a wide field of view, so we can see a lot of cones in 3D. It's not that accurate. It's just to give an estimation of depth. And those images, those color images, those high frame rate imagery was put into a algorithm called YOLO. YOLO is an artificial intelligence algorithm that can detect cones and can point out where the blue and yellow cones are, as you can see here. Next up, we have a LiDAR. A LiDAR is like a radar, but with lasers. It sends out lasers, it watches how much time it takes before the laser to come back, and it measures the time, and thus it knows the distance to the cones. And this gives, on short distances, really high accurate depth information. And from there again we can see where the cones are by detecting cone-shaped things. We put those camera data and LiDAR data on top of each other and we get where the cones are. The cool thing is, with this LiDAR, yellow cones reflect much less light than blue cones, so we can actually see which color is what. So now we know where the cones are. The question is, where should the car go? Can you help me? If you take a look at this image, where should the car drive? Take a look at the colors, take a look at the cones, what do you think? So you might think the car should go left, but this is actually not the case. Because if you take a look at the width of the track is always the same, so going left would mean the width would be very small, the car wouldn't fit there. So the correct way to go is forward. And yes, one cone was indeed incorrectly labeled as yellow. That happens. So this is a pretty serious algorithm that has to take into account all these factors to find the real correct path. Now one last question. How does the car know where it is on the track after driving multiple laps? It does the same thing you and me do. It takes a look into the world, it sees how the objects around it move, and using that information it knows where it is. And then you get something like this. A car is able to drive and know where the track is, follow the track, and because the car is really good at remembering things, it knows where it has been in the past. So in the second lap and the third lap, it can anticipate on upcoming corners and drive really fast on the straights and slow down just in time to not slip out of those corners. That's really cool, right? Put it all together on this car, make the car drive, and you get something like this. This was our achievement after a year of work. So if you think this is really cool, you can sign up for newsletters, both for the MIT people and the Delft people. You can also try it yourself by downloading a simulation. FSDS is the one I would recommend. If you have a bunch more questions, you can always send me a tweet or contact me. Thanks a lot for watching, I hope you had some fun.
Welcome to my talk on sustainably growing the Guild of Software Development. I am Vincent. A guild is a union of craftsmen, in our case software developers. Guilds have patrons, like software developers have employers. In my talk, I will focus on our guild in the Netherlands, starting with human resource data on software development. I will then continue with a call to action, followed by my suggestions for sustainable growth. Currently, there are 13 million software developers worldwide. For comparison, there are over 500 million farmers. In the Netherlands, there are around 83,000 software developers exercising our craft. The number of software developers in the Netherlands grows around 7% a year, compared to an estimated global rate of 20%. If the Netherlands grew with the global rate, we'd have over 10,000 extra developers each year. Let's look at the job openings for software developers. About 79% of all openings are aimed at university level, and patrons are mainly looking for senior developers. But do our patrons have any luck finding them? The IT sector has the highest worker shortage in the Netherlands. Our patrons have trouble finding developers in over 70% of all job openings. Almost 90% of these troublesome openings target senior developers. In the meantime, businesses are in trouble. In 2016, 25% of companies had trouble delivering their services due to IT worker shortage. This further increased to 40% in 2019. In the meantime, business and education are competing for the attention of developers. From middle schools to university, there are no teachers to be found. This limits the number of students getting into software development. To summarize, our guild in the Netherlands grows slowly. This is aggravated by a lack of teachers hampering growth. Our patrons have a hard time finding developers, even though this causes serious issues for a large number of businesses. To conclude, the current growth of our guild is not sustainable. Business, government and society are dependent on us, but we are with too few. Even education is affected by the competition for our attention. To grow more sustainably, we'll need the help of all parties involved. Developers, employers, education and government. It's a problem that affects us all. In the meantime, I have some suggestions to address the problems. Teachers first. Whatever we do, we need more teachers. Patrons, the education sector and guild, we have to find a solution. Pay them more. Sponsor teacher positions. We have to do whatever it takes. If we end up growing with the global rate of 20%, the number of developers doubles every 4 years. A team of 5 will only add 1 developer a year and 2 in the 4th year. This means that teams will end up with a healthy variety of experience. You can already compose your teams with a focus on growth. Compose teams with max half of developers having more than 4 years of experience, the rest with less, weighted towards junior positions. Seniors can be the master to less experienced developers. Structured mentorships allow us to transfer the skills of our trade, even when growing with 20% a year. A one-to-one mentorship is realistic. Graduates from other fields already have academic skills needed in our profession. You can train university graduates from other fields to become software developers. The Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences already offers such a program. Patrons want developers with a university degree. Students from our vocational schools, the self-taught and others just need a hand to get there. Patrons can offer them an apprenticeship to get the education they deem needed. There are many developer positions requiring further expertise. Cloud developer, native developer, architect, and many more. It would be great if we could easily pass on that expertise amongst fellow developers. As an example, I'm in a program where senior developers teach their skills to me. Educational experts can help us further to quantify our skills, standardize them, make them testable, and make them transferable. In the end, we're all in this together, as patrons, guild members, and educators. If we help each other out, I'm sure that we can sustainably grow software development in the Netherlands. Thank you for your attention and a happy JFall.